at some stage around 1993, 94, a sacred kingfisher actually knocked itself out on the window of a classroom that was at Ceres Environmental Park in Brunswick. And it's still in our CBD, which is the central business district of Melbourne. And so that's pretty extraordinary to think that a sacred kingfisher is actually there, because they'd left that area once there was all this urbanisation, and there was a whole big migrant population explosion in the Brunswick area, a lot more building going on in industry. And so, you know, of course, the waterways became quite polluted. It wasn't until the parks and waterways were cleaned up, Indigenous plants replanted again, and then the ecology started to fix itself up. And when that happens, that's when the sacred kingfishers started to return. So when Eric Bottomley, who was the education officer there at Ceres, when they heard this thud, you know, everyone jumps up and all the kids are going, oh, what was that? What was that? And so he went outside and they saw this little sacred kingfisher, and he said, wow, we haven't had kingfishers here for decades. This is extraordinary that they actually come back. So he's holding this kingfisher in his hand, and the children could see that it was still alive. So, you know, all these children are staring at this sacred kingfisher, including Eric. And then suddenly it was no longer stunned. It just flew away. And that was extraordinary. So Eric immediately went to tell Thais Sansom, who was another environmental educator at the park, and Ian Warrambudge Hunter, who is the Indigenous elder of the Kulin Nation here and of the Wurundjeri, and he was another teacher at Ceres Environmental Park. So the word got around, and Ian said, oh, yeah, kingfishers are back. Yeah, why not? And so Thais got on the phone to me and said, Jackie, we need to make a festival up. You know, come on, let's get going with Ian, and we've got to get a celebration through the arts to just share with the rest of the world, if not Melbourne, that if we clean up the environment takes care of itself, and kingfishers have returned. So Ian then began to share his beautiful story that had been passed on to him from his mum, and of the dreaming of the kingfisher. And it was really through Ian Hunter, who he was just so generous in the way that he was able to share that story with us. And so from that, we started to develop a contemporary dreaming about the kingfisher, about how this beautiful land in Brunswick was the kingfisher's stamping ground, where it was always there, living in balance and harmony with the ecology. And then some destructive force came in, and that was urbanisation. And then people wake up after this destruction, there's an awakening, and it's like a realisation of, if we don't look at what we're doing in our lives in connection to where we're living, it's going to die. It's all going to go away. So out of that realisation comes a regeneration, and that's where the plants and trees were, became the growth started to really grow again, and the ecology came back to nearly to its beautiful state, and people are walking along the creek now instead of, not going down there, because that's where all the car bodies are, and washing machines were thrown and the tip was, etc. So that was all cleaned up. So we go through these stages of creation, destruction, realisation, regeneration, and then celebration. So we might have a different theme every year, but essentially there are 5, that's the creative format that we follow. And then we weave whatever the theme might be each year. So, yeah. My area really is the celebration, where we're looking at the kingfisher boogie, and we're taking on the embodiment of this beautiful little bird, and how does it eat? How does it feed? How does it look after its young? How does it call out to its partner? Where does it fly in its territory? What does its tail look like? How does it move? How does it fly? So I took all those sorts of ideas of, how does this bird actually function and live in its environment? Because if we understand the sacred kingfisher and the way the sacred kingfisher is connected to its sense of place and territory, well, maybe we can learn something from that. How do we look after our environment so that Mother Nature can, in return, look after us and support us? Yeah. So the kingfisher boogie is that celebration of hope that if we look after the land will look after us. And so this is what Ian Hunter tells us. It's a very Indigenous concept. You take care of the land will take care of you. Yeah.